Welcome to the Get It Done podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Ryan. Today we are interviewing Ashley Miller. Let's get it done. All right, the Get It Done podcast is sponsored by Team Get It Done, and today we're interviewing Ashley Miller. Ashley is a business development, is the head of business development for GTG Financial. She's the proud mother of two beautiful girls that look literally exactly like you. They're like carbon copies. My goodness. And she's the co-host of the Blondes Have More Funds podcast with our good friend Michelle Dugan. Ashley, welcome to the Get It Done podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Hey, I'm really pumped too. We were talking a little bit before this that we know way too many people to have not been connected and had a conversation. So I'm pumped to get to know you on this recording. And I always ask, is there anything maybe I missed with my brief edification of you? Is there anything more that you'd want somebody to know about you?
No, I mean, that's basically my life right now is working for GTG Financial and raising those two kids and love them to death. They keep me on my toes. I really don't have much time for anything else.
I love it. Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that. How old are your girls?
They're 6 and 9.
6 and 9. Okay, got it. Because I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, so it's definitely different when it's 6 and 9. But I'm sure it's just as challenging to
every phase has its thing, right? There's the good and the bad with every single phase of growth with these kids. And with them being 6 and 9, I always thought in my head, as they get older, they're going to be more self-sufficient, which will take off some of the, those responsibilities when they're really young and they can't do anything for themselves. But then comes a whole new set of stuff, the sass and all of the attitude they pick up being at school and this little independence that I want to nurture for them. And I want them to hone in on that, but trying to parent that right now, I'm it's been a little wild, but it's amazing. And watching them, grow into themselves as they get a little bit older has been awesome. But we're heading into those teenage years. And so I'm just, over here hanging on as best as I can, ready to head into that.
Oh my goodness. I can't even think that far ahead with my kids. So, I mean, it's funny.
You got a little ways.
Yeah.
But it goes by quick.
Well, for sure. And okay. Well, I want to get right into it. The Get It Done podcast is really all about the come up story. We use Elon Musk as an example, and he has a story from making $1 million to $1 billion. And that's a great story. But what we're really looking for is a 0 to $1 million story, the come up story. And Ashley, I'm sure you would say look, I'm still on my come up story, and me too. We all are. But really, what I want to do is just to get to know you better is take us all the way back to where were you born? What were your parents like? What was those first early years of your life like?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love that. So I was born and raised in Northern California. For those who are familiar with the area, I grew up in a town called Vacaville, which is pretty centered between Sacramento and San Francisco. We're about 20 minutes from wine country, about 2 hours from Lake Tahoe. So it's just a wonderful place to have been raised, and raising my kids here too. Now I left to go to college, but I'm still here. Came back. My family, I am a cop and a teacher's daughter. They're both retired, traveling the United States right now, just having the best time living out their retirement. And my childhood, for the most part was, I had a wonderful childhood. It was pretty uneventful, I would say, as far as, we were just kind of your average happy family, I guess, growing up. My dad's from Boston. My mom was born and raised in England. And so we spent a lot of our childhood traveling between the East Coast and England. We were fortunate enough to do that. And like I said, I came back and settled back in Vacaville, California, where I was born and raised, and I'm raising my kids here too as well.
Well, what's interesting about it's Vacaville.
So it actually translates to Cowtown. Vacaville.
I would have never guessed that. And the only reason why I know of Vacaville is because of Brian Stevens and Frank Gray are everybody that's been in the mortgage industry for at least, well, I don't know, if you've been in it for 10 years, you know who they are. Think Big, Work Small, National Real Estate Post. But you wouldn't know where Vacaville is unless you saw that their posts are posting out of there. Mm-hmm. Is this the mortgage center of the world or what?
So So it's funny. I actually used to work with Frank and Brian. The company where I cut my teeth in the mortgage business, Frank was actually a loan originator there. And I do believe Brian also originated loans, and that company was called First Party Financial. The CEO, Tim Kearns, is who started and founded Think Big, Work Small, which is where everyone got to know Brian and Frank so well. And so they kind of put us on the map because they had this personality that people just cued right into. And at the time, no one else was doing what they were doing. So while our company was doing loans, they were there in the media and in the forefront, and they were going to speaking engagements and talking about the strength of the market, talking about, making predictions, what's to come. And so I would say that they probably helped put us on the map. But we are fairly saturated here in Northern California. And for California real estate, Northern California specifically, where I'm located and where that company was headquartered, is a county called Solano County. And considering that we're flanked by 2 metro cities, we've got Napa in our backyard. We're real close to the Bay Area. We're one of the most affordable counties in Northern California. So I do think that there's a huge need here for mortgage brokers and real estates and mortgage lenders because we've got a lot of people that are looking to relocate to Solano County because of the affordability.
Very cool. Well, that was totally a stab in the dark, that with Frank and Brian. That's really cool that you kind of got your start with them. And yeah, you're right. They're trailblazers in the industry. Literally nobody was doing video back then, except for there was like a small handful of people that were doing it, and they did it every day. And they always had a funny show, and that was like literally my morning coffee in the morning. Like I think a lot of people would start their day by watching the Think Big, Work Small to figure out what's going on in the industry. Yeah. But going back to you, so a cop and a teacher, man, that's got to sound like, I don't know, I would just assume as though, prim and proper rules, like a structured, life. And the Ashley Miller that I see on social is like, I wouldn't have pegged you as that. Or maybe it's just because of that you kind of become this, I don't know, you have such a big personality and you're out doing all these things. Was the early life like that? Very structured, very orderly?
It was, but Vacaville is a town of 100,000 people, but we're also such a very small town feel. And a lot of us still live here. We're, best friends growing up, and we all kind of had each other's backs. And so we kind of kept things real quiet. So there was quite a bit that I got away with growing up in my teenage years. But yeah, we were very structured, very regimented. My mom taught at the elementary school that I went to for second all the way up to 6th grade. And, I really couldn't get away a whole lot, like academically, there was no ditching class that I was able to do. But we definitely had enough fun, without the parents knowing exactly what it was that we were getting into.
That's so funny. And look, the Blondes Have More Fun's podcast. You guys are drinking a wine, hitting record. Yeah. I really love that. So, okay. So fairly normal childhood growing up. Bring us to high school. So yeah, what was high school like? Were you into sports? What was your GPA like? What was your first job, first car?
Okay, so GPA, I was very academically studious in my younger years. When I got to college, is a whole different story. But I was a 4.0 graduate with honors student, and the sports, I didn't get too highly involved with sports within the high school. I was on, we have a drill team. I don't know if you guys have that, but it's like the dance team that coincides with the cheerleading team. And so they do the halftime shows and stuff like that. And so I did that for 2 years and then just decided that I was kind of done with that. I had danced from about age, I think 7 all the way through my sophomore year of high school. And I was just a little burnt out at that point. So school, I was, on the straight and narrow. As much fun as I did have, I took my academics very, very seriously. And so 4.0, graduate with honors. What else did you ask me? I forgot all.
No, I know. I did. I asked a lot. Well, just you're probably the only person I've ever interviewed on this podcast that has had a 4.0 and was really, really good in high school.
Really?
I barely graduated, truthfully.
Oh,
and
gosh.
But I think that's a lot of people in the mortgage and real estate, financial planning, insurance industries that a lot of times we're just business entrepreneur type people where, nothing's impossible and you only do things that excite you. And a lot of times like for instance, I hated reading and I love reading now, but back then it's just like I'd be forced to read things I didn't want to read type of a thing. And I didn't really see the value. But you, as a mother, with your mother being the teacher, I mean, I'm sure that was something that was very important. And you're not necessarily rebelling from anything. You're kind of like, this is the way that it is. First job, first car.
First job, I was the hostess at our local pizza place here in town. And first car was a bright red Dodge Neon.
Oh my goodness, a Dodge Neon.
They don't even make those anymore. That thing's a relic.
I love that. What was the place you were hostess at?
It's a restaurant called Pietro's, a local family-owned Italian restaurant.
Love it. Just like were you a hostess there during the high school and that's it? Or
yeah, so I started working there when I was 15. My parents said to me, hey, if you want all these things, go get a job, go pay for them. So I did. So I got a work permit at 15 and started working at the local pizza joint, and started off seating people, and then worked my way up and, would actually work the cashier and take orders and get all of the deliveries ready and stuff. And I was really good at my job. I was one of the best hostesses. I actually served tables all through college. And so when I got into that, hospitality restaurant business, I really enjoyed it. I loved talking to people and interacting with people. And with that restaurant being so local, we actually grew up eating there. My dad, he's Italian. When they moved to Vacaville when I was 3 years old, he was searching high and low for like an Italian place that rivaled the places that he used to eat, because he grew up in Boston in this little Italian town. And he found it, loved it. We would eat there weekly. We got to know the whole entire staff, the owners. And so they were happy to hire me as well, because they knew my family and they knew me. And I really enjoyed it. And so from there, it just kind of carried on. And then all through college, I was a waitress all through college. And I did that up until I got into the mortgage business.
Wow. Well, Ashley, my goodness, you're way too perfect for me at this point.
Oh God, no.
You're way too perfect. Well, it just sounds like a dreamy childhood. So, okay, going to this. So, our good friend Rene Rodriguez, he talks about this at Amplify. He says, a lot of times the things that we do later on in our life is to either heal our past or honor our past. And a lot of times there's things that have happened to us between the ages of 9 and 13, and we, like literally everything that we do, if we really trace down like the emotion and the feelings of why, it's to heal our past or to honor our past. What are you trying to heal? What are you trying to honor?
My childhood, and I'm sure if I dug a lot deeper, I could probably get a little more in depth with, things that probably carried into my adulthood. But I would say a lot of my, trauma and things that I'd be trying to heal didn't come until my adult life. Once I got into college, I kind of had that rebellion stage where I wasn't sure who I was. I wasn't sure who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do with my life. And I just figured, hey, I'm just going to live for the now. And I really didn't have a whole lot of aspirations. As smart as, like I said, I was really studious in high school. I dropped it all once I got into college. It was just a very weird time for me. I'm trying to, I think anyone in their early 20s would probably feel the same way. You kind of lose a sense of who you are. And you're on this pressure for a fast track. We have to graduate college in a certain amount of years, and you have to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't know. I have no idea. So between that time up until probably, I would say my early 30s, was just a lot of soul searching, a lot of really deep introspection and trying to figure out who it was that I really am. Made some mistakes along the way. I probably hurt some people along the way. And I sometimes suffer from that imposter syndrome, my identity. Who am I really? Who is Ashley Miller? I'm a very confident person. And for, like you said, on social media, I have a very big personality, and that is what you get. What you see is what you get. Anyone who's ever, been with me in person at conferences, that is who I am. But there comes a lot of moments of, like I said, imposter syndrome. For example, being asked to come onto your podcast. At first I have the moment of why me? Like, there's so many people out there that he could interview, why me? Or when I get asked to do speaking engagements at events, I have these thoughts of why me? And so that's something that I continually try to work on and try to heal. And then you also said, what am I trying to
honor?
Myself, and not to be so vague, but honor myself, trust myself in this process, trust myself that I'm making the correct decisions for me and my kids. I really want to honor my family. And that comes in the form of, working as hard as I do and also trying to find that work-life balance, that I am being present with my children. And that was something that over the last 2 years, I think COVID actually kind of taught me this, because I was forced to slow down, that I need to honor, what I have built here and be proud of that, and not continue to, have these intrusive thoughts that make me think I'm not doing enough or that I'm not enough. So honoring who I am in the present with myself and my children.
What I love about you, Ashley, is that you're just a genuine person. And I think that's why I'm genuinely drawn to you, in the sense of, why am I having you on the show, is because I think you're the same person on and off social media.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I think that just shines through. And I really love just how vulnerable you're being with me. It's specifically about imposter syndrome. Everybody feels that. Me too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that you have to get to a point, though, with it, where it's just like you finally start to embrace actually who you are. And I think that if you live in our industry, especially mortgage, especially, is this: it's fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. There's this TEDx where it says, no, fake it till you become it. Like, okay, well, whatever. It starts with fake.
Right.
I mean, like, what people don't realize is that starts with fake.
Right.
And then you become this person, and then you realize you're not that person, and you're unhappy. Well, why? Because that's not who you are.
Right.
And a lot of times you have to, like, literally do that soul searching and figure it out. It's not something that you're given. You're not told what your gifts are. A lot of times you have to just try and figure it out. We were talking, like, I was born to interview people. I don't know why. Like, maybe that's a stupid gift to give me. You know what I mean? But like, but you know what I mean? It's just like, but that's the doubt that you have. I've had Barry Habib on. Barry says that, and this is a guy that literally gets up in front of rooms of thousands of people, and super mega successful. He's an icon in the industry. He's like, Jimmy, confidence is fleeting as heck. We have to wake up every day and choose it. We have to be grateful. We have to be confident, and just and be our most truest selves, and live our most truest selves. Otherwise, it's just fake.
Right.
Going to college. So you said that you didn't really know what you wanted to do. What was, I guess, I think a lot of people that don't know what they're going to do. Well, your mom's a teacher, so you're going to college. There's no way out of it. For me, I was just like, I'm not going. And just like, I hated school. I was just out of it. But then I started working. My college was early sales jobs. But for you were trying to figure it out. What did you actually go for? And what were those years of finding yourself like? Rebellion.
You're gonna laugh. I graduated. I'm a November baby. And back then that school for us, the cutoff was December. So when I graduated, I was 17 for the better part of my first year of college. The first semester ends in December. So I was 17 pretty much that whole entire time. And you're being asked these questions as you go in, as you're enrolling. They want to know what your goals are. They want you to pick these classes. They want you to declare a major. And it was like, oh my God, like, I don't know. So I grew up, my dad is a sports buff, and I was brainwashed on football and baseball since I was a child. And I am terrible. First, let me just say I'm awful at sciences and math. My brain is wired for literature and arts and things like that. I am not math. I am not science, which is really funny that I work in finance, but
you're the opposite of me. Come on my team. My goodness, we can knock some stuff out of the park. Yeah. That's so funny that you say that, but go ahead.
Awful. So I declared a sports med major, and I thought that I would, either work in the locker room or I would parlay that into broadcasting, and I would be the girl you'd see on the field broadcasting. What I didn't realize was everything it takes to get into sports medicine, all the science, all the math, all the classes you have to take, all the upper grad. At that point too, I didn't even know. I wanted to just do 4 years and get in and out of college and go work. And so I pretty quickly was like, no, I don't think that's for me. I think I'll let someone else do that, and I'll declare a different major. So then I went into journalism, and then I had these, kind of this Carrie Bradshaw thoughts that I would go work in the city for this major magazine, and I would have my own article, my own column, and I would write, maybe I would be on TV at some point, and that'd be my living. And then as I got into that, my counselor was kind of help guiding me, and she let me know that, hey, there is not a lot of money in journalism unless you are like the tip top of, and it takes a lot to get there. I'm not saying you can't, but it takes a lot to get there. And then it was, well, shoot, I don't want to get out of college and be a starving journalist. So I had to figure something out. So I went undeclared for the longest time and then finally declared a business degree so I could graduate, in the time that I wanted to graduate, and had graduated with a degree in business and a minor in communications, and then somehow wound up in the mortgage business.
Well, that's really interesting because it's just like, well, I guess I'll do business,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that a lot of people actually do that though. I think
Yeah,
that's,
it's very broad. So you can pretty much, there's a lot of just different avenues and different things you can do with it. So
I mean, at least you graduated, because I know a lot of people that like get into it, like, nope, not for me. I'm out of this,
yeah,
and don't persevere and do it. And I'm sure that was difficult. I mean, because it wasn't what you set out to do in sports medicine. Like, don't you have to be a doctor? Isn't that like,
yeah, you've got to go all the way up.
Yeah.
Much. Yeah.
My goodness. Well, it's really cool that you wanted to be into broadcast and write a column, but now here you have a podcast, you have your own your own avenue. It's pretty cool. And at this time you were a waitress. Was it still at Pietro's or was it a different spot?
Nope, I moved around a bunch. And so I actually graduated. I went to Chico State for my very first year, and I didn't work the first year I was there. And then I transferred into Sacramento State because Chico State was full of too many distractions, i.e. partying. So I had to leave if I was going to make something of myself and graduate. So I transferred into Sacramento State, and I kind of bounced around from a few different restaurants. But where my boss found me was at a local restaurant in a town called Davis, which is about 20 minutes from Vacaville, so it's pretty close. And I was serving.
Called?
It's called Seasons.
Got it.
And he came in, and I was serving him. And he had said, "Hey, I think you have the personality to really make it in the business, and I'm looking for an executive assistant. How about you come work for me?" And I remember saying, "I don't know how to spell mortgage. Like, you don't want me. I don't know how to do math." And he was like, "Nope." He was like, "Well, I'll teach you everything you need to know." And he's like, I hire for talent, and you definitely have it. And we'll give you benefits. And that's what took me. I was like, benefits? I don't have benefits. I'll take the job. And so I took the leap and got into the mortgage business, and I haven't looked back since.
Who is this person that gave you this opportunity?
His name is Mike Soldati.
Mike Soldati?
Mm-hmm. Soldati.
That's awesome. Well, shout out to Mike. That's really cool. I mean, and really, I would say doubly cool to, you're a server at a restaurant. And I mean, I'm sure you have the same energy you do now. I mean, it's just like, just bubbly, a ton of energy. And I think that is really, it really is. It's a needed thing in the mortgage space. And I've said this a lot to people. I got my start, calling leads, and I think there's a stat out there. And if there's not, well, whatever, it's a Jimmy Ryan stat. If you took two people of equal talents calling leads, but one of them was a woman, the woman will beat the man all day long. It's just the truth. And to have somebody with that energy that I think that you have, I mean, that you absolutely convey, I don't think you convey it, is absolutely something that's sought after. So you start out, you're an executive assistant. What does an executive assistant do? And I guess, what was it like to just start out?
So the executive assistant does everything the president needs them to do. I was his right-hand man. When I got in 2009, and it was actually the GFE, the new GFE that was coming out, GFE 2010. And one of my first projects was to learn GFE 2010 and teach it to all the loan officers, how to fill it in, how to fill it out. So that was that. I managed our correspondent lines and our pipelines with the correspondent lenders that we were set up with. And, it was just a lot of it was helping him keep the sales staff efficient. And so I learned a lot very quickly because he would pull me in on every project and every initiative that he was trying to move forward. What was it like? It was very intimidating at first because you put someone in this position and they're the executive assistant to the president. And at the time we had 1,000 loan officers, and we were licensed in, gosh, if I remember right, I think about 7 states. I mean, we had multiple states at that point, and we had, like I said, 1,000 loan officers. And so then you put this person in that position and people automatically think I have the experience. They already are associating me with an executive assistant position that has the experience to be in that position. And I did not. And so it was overwhelming at first. And I'm the type of person where I like to figure things out on my own. And so I spent a lot of time Googling, finding out what the different terms mean. I mean, I remember looking up HUD, what HUD was. I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what FHA stood for. And then the whole conversation of how to, mortgage BIPs, that was a whole thing that I couldn't wrap my head around. So it was very intimidating at first, but my boss, Mike Soldati, he was very he gave me the safe place to come in. He had an open door policy with me. I could go in and sit down in his office and ask him any question that I needed to ask, and he would explain it to me. He never made me feel like I, could not do that. He never made me feel, dumb for asking questions of things I didn't know. He was great at nurturing that career path for me. And I still, to this day, credit him for everything I know in the industry, and being able to have that confidence that I had because he helped instill that in me at such an early point in my career.
Sounds like a great leader. I mean, a lot of people are just thrown against the wall, and hopefully you stick. And not a lot of training or care is really given to them. I mean, that's how I started. I think a lot of people that I've interviewed have just been, all right, here you go. Here's the phone. Go at it.
Yeah.
And no real open door, or if there is an open door, you're bothering them. You know? And I mean, to a certain extent, you're going to bother someone at least a little bit,
Sure.
but someone that actually takes you under their wing and actually teaches you the why. I love how you're talking about it's 2009 and GFE 2010. Man, I remember when that came out, and I'm sure you can attest to this. I didn't start much before you. I was in October of 2007, but everybody was anti GFE 2010.
Yeah.
Like everybody hated GFE 2010. It's still called GFE 2010 in Encompass for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, do you even remember what it was like before that? You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't even describe it before that, but it really is. It was a huge.
It was. And I had a different advantage because I didn't know the form before that. I was not on the business. I didn't originate. And so when I got it, I think I was able to help our loan officers understand it a bit better because I was coming at it from a fresh set of eyes. But that was that disrupted the industry so badly. People were just up in an uproar about it. But, when I started comparing everything and looking at, how y'all had done, and I think that GFE prior to this one, that I don't think had changed since like the 1970s or something like that, when I was first initiated into the industry. And so this was just a lot of, habitual, muscle memory of doing it one way. And then we came in and they didn't actually give, I think, us much time really to acclimate to the new GFE 2010 either. And so it was quick. And having to teach that, having to teach it to frustrated loan officers, I'm sure you can imagine how that went down.
I mean, a lot of people exited the industry around this time. First off, you have the financial collapse, and that had a lot of people move out. But then the NMLS requirements, like for instance, you couldn't have had a bankruptcy or a foreclosure and all these things. There's tons of loan officers that had just like the worst of credit and just like the worst financial history. Like there's literally loan officers that were guilty of fraud that were literally recommending people. I mean, like, I think there's a lot of good that came out of it. And at the time, I thought it was going to go away. Actually, I thought that it was all going to be like repealed. Actually, and actually, Brian Stevens and Frank Gray were kind of like talking about that back in the day. Like, this is unconstitutional, all this stuff. But it all definitely was here to stay. So all right, you got your benefits. You're an executive assistant. What I guess take us from there. Where did you take your career?
From there, once I started to catch on, I realized I loved the industry. There was just something about it. And I still to this day can't pinpoint what exactly it is. I don't know if it's the controlled chaos environment, if it's just the thrill of the markets, because I could spend hours researching the markets and what happened historically and compare it to today. And I could go down a whole rabbit hole of that. But I loved it. And so I was just thirsty for more, and I wanted to know more, and I wanted to dig my heels into that company to where I was so valuable with what I knew and what I could do that they could never get rid of me. If there was ever another downturn in the economy, I was going to be so valuable to them, and not just in what I knew, but the fact that I would do anything. Also, I never took a "that's not my job" approach as I was, learning and coming up, and I still don't to this day. I took a very hands-on team effort kind of thing. And so from there, I learned every avenue possible. And anytime that there was an opportunity for me to move laterally positions, I always reported to the executive team, being the CFO, the CEO, and the president. But if there were things I could pick up. So I have done, like I said, I've done correspondent lending. I was at one point in charge of our warehouse line relationships. I've done compliance, so where I was auditing our in-house files. I've pretty much done everything except for processing and doc drawing. At one point towards the end of my career, I was the corporate administrator, and I was helping manage, all of our branches and all of our loan officers. That included licensing, contracts. Like I said, compliance was a big portion of that. we bought a bank in 2000 and gosh, if I remember right, we bought a bank. I want to say we bought a bank in 2012, and we took on a retail line, and I was in charge of that as well. And so I was kind of the liaison between our wholesale division and our retail division. So I literally took on every opportunity I could to continue to learn more and more and more about the industry. And my bosses were incredible because they wanted me to learn more too. And so they were always giving me opportunities. Towards the end of my career, I was on the board of directors, and I was a sitting member as a secretary in the board of directors. And it was just fantastic for me to dive in the way that I did. I started originating in 16. Our company was purchased by Caliber Home Loans. And at that point, the corporate positions were pretty redundant. And so I had been licensed, and it was something I always wanted to jump into, but I was so comfortable doing what I was doing, and I enjoyed what I was doing. So in 2016, when we were purchased by Caliber, I took the opportunity to start originating home loans, and I jumped into that. But I always knew I wanted to get back to the executive management level, which is what I do today. But I also think that I can't effectively do that if I don't know the job that I'm supposed to manage. So I originated for a couple of years before I took the job with GTG Financial. And now today, I'm the business development manager. And I feel like I've come full circle, and I'm kind of back doing the things that I learned and that I loved doing when I first got into the industry.
So okay, well, I want to go into what your job actually entails, but just to go back to the origination piece.
Yeah.
Because here you were in the industry for a fair amount of time. I mean, 6 years, and then you get into the LO side. I mean, first off, that must just be scary. Number one, because it's 100% commission. Maybe you got a salary or something like that, but whatever. It's a different job. It's completely different. And I mean, was it full commission? And what surprised you the most about it?
It was not full commission. They actually set me up very well. They structured me to where I was more of a junior loan officer, and I had a mentor. And so they were able to give me a salary, and then I was able to make commission off of the loans that I brought in, and then a small portion off the loans that I would help my mentor with. So if I acted as a LOA, a loan officer assistant with her, I got a portion of that. So they really did a great job at making sure I had that safety net. But it was very, very difficult because don't forget, these are the loan officers that I used to help manage and I used to help support, that now I've just become their local competition. And as much as we talk about the law of abundance, and I do believe in that, there is a small portion that you need to, remember that there is only so much business that goes around, and we are now fighting for the same realtors and the same business. And yes, there is enough to go around, but the competition is there. And so it was hard for me to, rewire myself because I didn't have that competitiveness to me that I wanted to compete against the people that I used to manage. And some of them are also my good friends. Our families became great friends. So that was a little difficult for me to rewrap myself around. And so it was slow to grow for me in the beginning as an originator. And, to be perfectly honest, I really, truly missed that support side of it. I think I'm a high eye on the disc. And so I think that I am made to be that support person for a sales team. And I just really longed for that, once I stepped away from it completely. And like you said, it was very scary. While I was set up to be successful as far as my income was concerned, yes, it is very scary because there was a pay cut involved. And you are looking at eventually going 100% commission. That was the route they wanted me to go. And, as I know, in this market, I got in after the crash, but I've heard all the stories of the people who survived it. And that's always in the back of my head that could be coming again, that we just never know what this is going to do. So it was a little nerve wracking. And at the time too, I was building my family. And so all those stressors were there.
I mean, okay, building your family, and man, so many places I want to go with this. Okay. So you're building your family, you're transitioning to a new job. Talk about building the family for a second. So what does building the family mean? I'm just assuming, is this like getting married, start like having kids? What was building your family like?
I was having babies. My first child was born in 2012, my second in 2015. And then I started originating about a year after she was born. And so they were young, and they were still, our family was still very young. We were not necessarily established yet because we had just moved into a brand new home. We just had a brand new baby. And so everything was pretty much, we were adjusting to a lot of things. I was adjusting to being a new mom to 2 kids. That is a game changer. For anyone who's gone to 1 to 2, that is a game changer.
100%.
adjusting to, my husband at the time, my ex-husband now, my husband at the time, he was also in sales too. And he was making moves into different positions and things like that. And so there was just a lot of uncertainty surrounding it. And the one thing I think any parent will agree on is we want to know that our family is financially secure. Whatever that looks like, everyone has a different idea of what that is, but we wanted to know our family was financially secure. And it was just a lot of questioning ourselves, are we making the right choice and can we actually do this?
Well, I think for sure, security is a big issue. I think for men, sure, but I think for women even more so. I think it's a mother, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
You want security, and it's not just about you. It's about the kids. And
right.
Transitioning into being the mother of two, I can absolutely attest to that. Having two kids is an absolute game changer. To anybody out there considering having a second child, but really though, you kind of have to be prepared that it really is an overwhelming thing. It is very challenging. You have a newfound respect for parents with multiple kids. One is not easy either, but 1 to 2 is definitely a big thing. And your husband's in sales. He's making moves. I have to imagine that, this has got to be the most stressful time of your life.
Yeah, it was.
How'd you make it? I shouldn't say it like that. I guess describe it. And I want to talk about it in the sense that what advice would you give to somebody really that's right in that spot right now? I guess what kept you going?
My kids, honestly. I didn't have a choice. I had to double down. There was no choice for me to make that decision that would affect my children when they did not ask for any of this. We were making decisions for our family that we knew would turn into a successful future, but trying to get there, that comes with a lot of stressors, comes a lot of uncertainty, but my children did not choose that for themselves. And so I did not have a choice but to not double down and continue working as hard as I could in order to make sure that I was hitting the goals that I needed to hit. And my ex-husband felt the same way too. And so honestly, we just had to keep going, so I would tell anyone who's just in that position, you got to keep going, make sure that your goals are aligned, what it is that you want for yourself, what it is that you want for your family, and what it is that you want for your future. And don't lose that why. That was one of the things that was recommended to me in the very beginning was find your why, and everyone's why is going to be a lot different, but my why is my kids. And so because of that, I was hyper focused on making sure that I didn't give up. That was just not an option.
I love that. So, okay. So generally speaking, the worst times in people's lives are going through a divorce. And you've already mentioned ex-husband. So, did this happen shortly after the end of the marriage? And I guess describe it for go as deep as you want to go with it. I know it's a fairly personal topic. And it happens. So a lot of people.
Yeah, it does. And I enjoy talking about it because I do want to normalize it for people and kind of take away some of that power that we feel like divorce has over us. I think the more we talk about it, the less scary it really is. And it kind of takes away that stigma of it. So we wound up separating in 2019. And I would say there was about a 2-year, period where we were trying to figure out if this was going to work or not. My ex-husband and I met very young. I was 21 when I met him. And I think that it was just a product of he and I growing apart, honestly. And I know that's very, very vague, but it was just we no longer were aligned anymore. Our goals were no longer aligned. We wanted different things out of life. And we were just going in an opposite direction. We couldn't come back and find that center. So as yes, and I'm sure there are some stressors that exasperated that feeling that we needed to separate, that came with our careers and trying to raise young children. It is hard. It's hard being a working dad and raising children and being a working mom and raising children. It is not easy. It is not for the faint of heart. And everyone out there, God bless you, keep going. So we separated in 2019 and wound up deciding that it would be better for our family, that we would be stronger as individuals if we were no longer together. As contradictory as that sounds, but that's truly what wound up happening once we separated and got under separate roofs, is we started to flourish as individuals.
What I really love, thanks for your vulnerability with that. I think this is powerful because I think, especially in our industry, Ashley, is that a lot of people do get divorced. And a lot of times it is a terrible thing. It doesn't seem like it was a terrible, divorce is terrible. Let's just call it what it is. But
Mhm.
you're telling the story of what happens afterwards, that like, look, now we're two individual people chasing after the goals that we want to actually chase after,
Mhm.
and we can do that better apart. And I think that that's such a great perspective, because I think that sometimes when people do go through this type of a transition into being a single mom or a single
Mhm.
dad, you're right, that's really hard. It's darn near impossible, especially to transition to it
Yeah, and
when,
it's terrifying. It's
yeah,
hard. It's really scary to think. And we live in California too. The thoughts of, can I do this financially on my own? Can I support myself and my kids financially? And when I say on my own, my ex-husband, we're on great terms and stuff, and there is plenty that he does to help us. But still, you have to think of that on, can I do this by myself? And it's terrifying to think of doing that and taking that leap and starting over.
but there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I think that
Mhm.
that's really the hope, to anybody that might be struggling through that. So I want to go back to your proceed with, you become a loan officer, you go and do that for a couple years, and you learn the ropes. I mean,
Mhm.
that's it. I'm sure it was exciting in some ways. I'm sure there's a lot of benefits and good times that you had out of it. But
Mhm.
eventually you figure out, like, look, I'm a high I, I'm not a high DI.
Yep.
And like, I have no S and no C, and I'm like, I'm literally a 99D, 99I. So
I'm
that's
all
amazing.
I and all S.
That's so funny. But that's, I think that that's really powerful too, is that some people need to, it's cool that you at least experimented with it and like
Mhm.
really got to know what it's like, because I would argue now your understanding or ways that you can relate to somebody that is a loan officer or struggling with a divorce, or just starting out as an executive assistant, all of these things, you can relate to somebody on such a deep level. And I think that it's got to make your job nowadays just that much easier, and you can just command it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I completely agree. There was a lot that I learned. I supported the loan officers, and there was plenty of times, and no offense to the loan officers, because I eventually became one and I understood. But there were plenty of times when a request would come in, right? And I would think to myself, like, gosh, they're just so self-centered. They're just so focused on them and their business and like what they need and what they want. And then when I became a loan officer, then I was that person. And it just gave me such a better understanding of holding space for the sales team once I got back into management, and understanding their struggles, understanding what the day-to-day is like for them. I mean, I was not prepared for what my weeks were going to look like. When I was getting into it, everyone kept telling me like, oh my gosh, you're going to have all this free time to hang out with your kids. And there was no free time to hang out with my
Right.
kids. Like,
Mhm.
and if you have free time to hang out with your kids, I mean, for me, I could not stop. Like I had to keep going, and it was a little overwhelming for me. And so it just gave me a better appreciation of what it is that the sales staff has to deal with day to day, the conversations that they have to have for one file, everyone that's involved on one file, the amount of communication that you have to have with different individuals in different departments on one file. And of course, by the time they get to me, it's the fires are here. I got to put the fires out. So it really truly lent that understanding for the sales team. And I'm really glad that I did that, because I don't think it would have made me the leader I am today for the company. And I don't think it would make me as communicative as I am today for the company, and be as effective as I am in the management role that I'm in.
100%. Perspective of a loan officer is difficult to
Absolutely.
describe to somebody that has never done it before, for sure. All right. So what do you do now? Like what is biz dev? Like what is it? What's the leadership role that it is? Is it technically biz dev? I think I got that on your LinkedIn or something. What's the technical?
Yeah, so my title is business development, but it is all encompassing of many different roles. I wear many different hats. I do everything from our company's compliance to our contracts with our wholesalers to marketing, branding, loan officer support, CRM technology. That's falls on my desk too. And then there is the recruiting part of that, and the nurturing of new relationships with agents and clients. But when I got hired, so Glenn Groves is the CEO of GTG. He is an active producing loan officer, and he is month over month one of our top producers, and he really enjoys it. And he did not want to have to step away from that to run the company. And so he essentially brought me on because he needed, and Glenn's a high D, I'm a high I. So he needed that supplement to that personality to help him run the company. And that's essentially what I do day in and day out. Because we took between 2020 and 2021, we got all of our systems in place. We found what holes we had in our bucket. COVID showed us real quickly the holes that we had, and we were able to pivot quickly and fix some things and get our ops staff dialed in, get our systems dialed in, train the team and get that team structure just the way we wanted it. So we have our perfect loan process dialed in. To now that that's all set, I do have the time now to actually focus on the business development stuff that I want to do, which is bring in new relationships with realtors, recruit new loan officers, and then also nurture our current client database, which is it's super important. If you're not nurturing your database, you're missing out. That's a gold mine right there.
100%. And it comes down to your systems and the way that it actually is structured. And really, I mean, here, every company has a tech stack. Every company has a CRM system, but how's it being used? What's the actual fulfillment of it? How are the loan officers using it? How easy is it? Do you have to rethink the wheel every single time? There's a lot of stuff that goes into that I think that it goes unappreciated, truly. You mentioned so many things. My goodness, Ashley, is there something that you like? I can't think of something that you wouldn't do other than loan officer or process. So
I don't process.
So compliance, contracts. I would have guessed honestly that you would have just your major role is marketing and in recruitment, but you're telling me you're in all of these other things. What's your favorite thing to do? Is it what I'm talking about?
Marketing is my favorite thing. Content creation. Honestly, my podcast too with Michelle, if we could turn that into a full-time job, I absolutely 100% would. The marketing and content creation is by far my favorite part of the job. And I love speaking to people. I've always said that if I could be paid to be a people person, I would totally take that job. If there was a job out there that just paid me to go talk to people. And so I do love the recruiting portion of it. And I do love, meeting with new realtors and stuff like that and trying to bring those relationships into GTG Financial because I get to do exactly what I want to do, which is talk to people. So I do love that. But there is a lot of the parts of the business that take me, it's a little nostalgic for me, which, doing the contracts and supporting the loan officers and just getting deep in the weeds with the administrative stuff just kind of brings me back to my early days. And so I do have an appreciation for that as well. But like I said, if I could just spend my days doing podcasts and interviews and things like that and just talking, I would.
I feel like it's possible. I feel like truly this industry, and actually I'd love to talk about this with you. So first off, what's next for you? But before we get into that, I want to tell you what I think is going to be the industry. I think that at a certain point, you're going to pick up your phone and you're going to be, hey, Siri, I need a mortgage pre-approval.
Yep.
And then here's how it's going to work. Your credit report is already uploaded into the system. Your assets, it's already connected to your bank accounts. It's already connected to your W-2s and all your paycheck stubs. It's connected to DU and LP, and it just runs it already for you. And it literally is going to, within 30 seconds, tell you you're pre-approved at this amount. Here's your interest rate options. Here's your payment. Here's your down payment. Here's what it is. Would you like to proceed? And do you need a referral to a realtor? I believe it's going to be that easy. And here's why I believe that. Because if you had that right now, if you were the company, if Glenn Gross?
Groves, yeah, Glenn Groves.
If Glenn Gross had that system and had that process, I'm just telling you right now, he would dominate the market. Right now, Quicken Loans is in the top five, is top five lenders in every single county in the United States. They're the top five. Why? They don't even give good service.
Right.
But it's all tech. So anyway, that's my idea of where I think that the market is headed. Where do you see yourself going, and where do you see the market going?
Well, I agree with you on where the market's headed. I do think we're going to have a portion of the population that does want that human experience. And so there will be a need for that. However, we're going to right size our loan officers. And I think we could see this coming as soon as the next 5 years. We're going to start seeing more companies take on more tech. We are in a immediate gratification society these days. And that's why people like Rocket so much. You push button, you get mortgage. Truthfully, I don't truthfully love picking up the phone call just to even make a doctor's appointment. I want to go online to do everything. I want to be able to change my cable bill and just go right online and do it, and update my cell service and just go right online and do it. We've kind of gotten away from that human experience. I think, and this could be a very naive thought of mine, but with housing and finance, I mean, this is the largest purchase you were ever going to make, and you're going to trust hundreds of thousands of dollars to a robot. But technology is rapidly advancing, and for that A paper borrower, that is going to fit right in line with what it is that they want to do. They don't want the fluff. They don't want to talk to the high I's of the world like me. They're probably high D's themselves. They just want to push button, get mortgage. So I agree with you that we are headed that way. What does that mean for the loan officer? I think loan officers will turn into true advisors. And I think that we will be the ones that are advising on the strength of the economy, advising on the loan products that the company offers. However, when it comes down to the actual file management and actually getting the loan, that's going to be done by technology. For me, I would love to be on a speaking circuit, and I don't know I don't know my topic. I don't know what I would speak about yet. I have been fortunate enough that I've had friends give me opportunities at events that they have thrown, and I've been able to sit on panels, and I've been able to speak on topics that they would like me to speak on. But I would eventually like to become, an expert in a certain niche, whatever that might be. Maybe it's women empowerment. Maybe it's women in business. Maybe it's, one of the things that I always talk about is imperfect action and starting something before you're ready. If it's a dream of yours, start it. That's Michelle and I. When we started the podcast, we accidentally went live on Facebook for our very first podcast. It was a total flop, but people loved it because we ran with it, and we were absolutely not ready. And if anyone goes back and listens to episode 1 and compares it to our last episode, you're going to see a lot of growth in those episodes. But we just took the leap of faith to do it. So it's kind of a very long-winded explanation I'm giving you right now. For me, eventually, I would love to be more of that persona. Maybe I can represent, the mortgage industry as far as, what the opportunities are in our industry. I think people think that it is very it's just origination. We're heavy origination because that's what you see. You see the producers, you see the people who are actually out there, doing the loans, but there's so many avenues in our industry, and it offers just a wonderful lifestyle. So perhaps something like that. But if I could, be more visible on different platforms and perhaps book some speaking engagements, that would be a ultimate goal of mine that I would love to fulfill.
Boy, so, okay. Same on the speaking piece. So I want to dig into this while we're recording. And so a good friend of mine, Nick Carpenter, I told him, I kind of I want to get up and speak, but I'm not sure what I want to do. And here's what he told me. And this is why I want to tell it to you and on recording, because I think anybody that maybe might want to do that, I think this is just fire advice, is write down 4 topics that you just know that you're an actual expert about, that you could just literally just talk about. Go out and just update your profile. Say, hey, I'm open to speaking arrangements about these 4 things.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
The things that you mentioned: imperfect action, starting a podcast, women empowerment. I think that those are just I did the same thing. I literally just listed off some stuff and this, and just things I could absolutely just get up on a stage. I could talk about lead management, for instance, calling leads, starting a podcast, brand management, creating a brand. These are the types of things that, anyway, I think that you could do. And then I want to just go back to you were talking about, it's still a relational business. And while I do think that it is going to be push button, get mortgage, let's just say that it was literally on your phone. It said loan amount, down payment, cash to close, payment options, pick one. And let's just say that it was so easy to understand, and it was all on your phone. All you had to do is press the button, and then you close. Even if it was that easy, you're still going to want to say, okay, but I want the option to call the loan officer. And then here, even if the loan officer just said this, yep, it's real. Yep, you just push the button. I believe it. Whoever the person is that actually takes that call, that's the power. And what and going deeper with it, and why I think that it's really cool what you and Michelle are doing, is it comes down to the brand. Who's that loan officer? Well, is it the loan officer that has a podcast? Is it the loan officer that is active on social? Is it the loan officer that has a brand? Or is it Joe Schmo loan officer that you don't even know? You can't even Google search and find. So I think that's key. But Dale Vermillion says it's the best. Advice is never going to go out of style. And we're going to have to do that. I mean, and that's the pivot. It's not how fast can you process a loan. It's how good is your advice? What do you know?
Yeah. And are you the expert in your specific field?
100%. Boy, I love this. I love this, Ashley. So, okay, there's a few questions that we ask everybody that comes on the show, and I want to be super respectful of your time, and I want to make sure that we get these out. So, all right, first one is this.
Okay.
I want to keep on calling you Michelle. I'm telling you, like
That's okay. Honestly, her and I don't care. We'll answer to either. People confuse us at conferences all the time, so it's perfectly fine if you do.
but here I know Michelle too. Like I know Michelle at a very deep level, so it's just like, but it's just I'm just calling it out in myself just so I don't mess up. So so I ask these questions and ask it to the wrong person. All right, Ashley, do you feel like you ever got a big break?
Yes, I do. I feel like my big break was when I got into the mortgage industry and my first boss took a chance on me and hired me from zero experience. I was a waitress and taught me everything I know. I have afforded myself a wonderful lifestyle in the mortgage industry, and I credit him for getting me there.
Shout out Mike Soldati. That's awesome.
Shout out.
If you were to do it all over again, Ashley, what would you change?
I would set my boundaries a lot sooner and a lot earlier, especially when you're a woman getting into loan origination. You feel like you have to say yes to everyone and everything to get the deal. And I would have learned the power of no a lot sooner. I would have set my boundaries a lot sooner. That would be my advice to anyone getting in. And if I could go back and do it over, that'd be what I would do.
Wow, I've never had anybody answer it like that. I've never even thought about it until recently. But gosh, I am that way right now, and it took me, I think, probably a decade before I got to the point where it's like, I think you need those hell no's. I
Yep.
think you need to really firmly establish what a hell no is, and
Yep.
also what a hell yes is. But wow, establish boundaries. That's really great advice. Was there ever a time, Ashley, you felt like giving up?
Yes. Yes. And I'd be lying if I said I still don't feel that way every now and then. This business has a way of really burning you out. As wonderful as it is, if you don't find that balance, if you cannot have a hobby outside of your business, it's inevitable. Everyone's going to burn out. It happens to all of us. But absolutely, yes. And I think when it hit me the hardest was when I was originating, when I took that leap, because I did leave, and I'm a huge believer in stepping outside your comfort zone, but I did leave the job that I loved. I did leave where I felt comfortable. I did leave a, financial stability that was comfortable for me and leapt into it. And to be totally honest, it was not an easy transition for me for all the reasons we talked about prior to this. And I had moments of, maybe this industry is not for me. Maybe this just isn't for me. I don't know where I go from here. Thank God GTG came in and offered me the job soon after, but I couldn't see there. To me, there was no light at the end of the tunnel, and I didn't know what was next. And there was just a lot of self-doubting thoughts and intrusive thoughts and things like that. And I do remember talking to Michelle Dugan, and telling her, I think I'm going to get out of the industry. I think I'm going to go find something else to do. I've got skills. I'm marketable. I don't necessarily need to stay in finance. I'll go get another job. And I'm lucky enough, I've aligned myself with people who are very supportive of me and believe in me sometimes more than I believe in myself. And she fiercely believed in me, and she kind of helped me keep going. But yeah, absolutely. I think if you're in this industry and you don't feel that way, we might have to have a chat, make sure that you're okay, because I think that's pretty normal for everyone to have those feelings.
Well, that's great. Shout out Michelle. That's cool. All right. Last question. So to set it up, there is a young Ashley out there. And, maybe their parents are cops and teachers. Maybe they got a 4.0. Maybe they're doing dance and drill. Maybe they're, driving their Dodge Neon around. Maybe they're, in college being a rebel, not really knowing where they want to take their life. Maybe they're waiting tables. Maybe, it's their first stab at an executive assistant role. Maybe they're managing a bunch of different things. Maybe they're just stepping out into loan officering and they're competing with other LOs. Maybe they're getting a divorce. Maybe they're raising kids on their own. Maybe they're a single mother, single father. What advice would you give to someone looking to get it done?
You've got to figure out your why. You have to get very clear on what that why is. And you have to just keep going. It is not an option to give up. Double down on the times that you feel like this is going to take you over and that you don't know where you're going to go next. Just keep going. The one thing I learned was I had to fiercely trust myself in any decisions that I made. And it doesn't matter what someone else thinks. It doesn't matter if they don't believe in my dreams or not. It does not matter. These are my dreams. This is my journey. This is my walk through life. And I had to fiercely trust myself that I was making the right decisions. We can only make decisions with the information we have in front of us today. So you have to go all in on that. You're either all in or you're all out. But you have to go all in on that, get real clear on what the why is, and don't give up. You have to keep going.
Wow, fire answer from Ashley Miller. That's lovely. All right, I want to thank our audience for joining us today. I especially want to thank Ashley for coming on the show. And Ashley, if someone was looking to connect with you, what would be the best place for them to do so?
I'm very active on social media. Facebook's easy to find me. Just type in my name, Ashley Miller, and Instagram. My handle is Ashnick Miller on Instagram, and you can connect with me there. I'd be happy to connect and chat with anyone. I love meeting people in the industry and forming friendships and relationships in the industry. So please reach out.
Love it. All right, and we'll make sure that we put some notes to that in the podcast description. So, all right, this has been the Get It Done podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And, if you like the show, you've taken some value from today, if you could, open up Apple Podcasts, scroll the way down to the bottom and tap that 5-star. It's just so easy. And maybe do the same thing for Blondes Have More Funds. That would be super awesome of you. And subscribe, tell a friend, write a 5-star review. All those things make a huge difference in helping us reach more people. Once again, I am Jimmy Ryan. This has been the Get It Done podcast. Thanks so much for listening.